If you don't know the Jabberwocky poem, it is made up of what many call nonsensical language. There are entire novels and dissertations written on the nonsensical language of Lewis Carroll, and how there's meaning throughout if you just look at the context of it. The interesting thing about Jabberwocky is that it is so up for interpretation in terms of what it is. For me personally, what it represented to me in the writing of it was the unknown and the fear of that unknown and not knowing her place and what was going on and what was actually happening to her. And so there was that element of, I have no idea what this thing is. And I tried to incorporate not just the poem itself, but a little bit of that music and that sound from the beginning of the millennium. You probably can't really recognize the music in it. Some of you might, but I've changed it a great deal, but still, it's from a band called Korn. It starts with a K. It's a really heavy metal band, and the song is called Chutes and Ladders. And it kind of takes nursery rhymes and throws them on their head. So for me, it was mixing those elements of what she had been exposed to, while at the same time bringing in a little bit more of the elements of 9/11 itself and what was happening at that time. What you heard throughout that as well is you actually heard the Jabberwocky in Arabic, and it was a mixture of English and Arabic in the piece itself. That's a lot. Curious about somebody. Did you take a nap?
Can you tell us who Emma represents as like the White Queen? Finally.
Shall I? If you didn't get it, which is okay, I took my character to represent Alice's mother. So, if you notice in the show, she asks, "How long have you been here?" And we both say 12 years. And Alice is 12 years old. So the story goes is that for my character background, I died giving birth to Alice in the real world, and so I was taken to Wonderland. So I'm Alice's kind of saving grace at the end. I'm kind of the thing that, we played with the 5 stages of grief that Alice is going through as she uses Wonderland to accept her death, basically, and deal with all of that. So for me, I was the stage of acceptance. So I was there to make Alice ready to finally move on and pass on and face the tragedy that she's, having to deal with. So yeah, I basically took it as being a motherly, protective, kind of matronly figure for Alice.
I have 2 questions. First of all, will these kids be mic'd? I understand they cannot be mic'd for the competition. Will they be mic'd for like Scotland and what have you?
No. Scotland actually, the venue in Scotland that we're in is actually it's more of a black box space.
It's more of a
black box space. The audience is very close. It's a very intimate staging.
Okay.
Right.
Because it is very difficult with this big stage to hear even back here to pick up all of the words. The other thing is, will we be afforded the opportunity to hear play when it has music?
Yes.
Great.
Spoiler alert.
Yes, this is a question for Reagan Scott. The Queen, right? So, how, like, so the costume wise, how did y'all come up with that, the headless queen? And props to you for acting headless.
So do you want me to just like explain the costume? So basically that costume represents, so the queen has this big thing where it's like off with your head. And so she basically chops off her own head, like, you know, because she chops off everybody's heads, and so she just chops off her own head. And so the costume is, that was my body, like, up above there, because I'm this big queen. I'm, like, tall, and scary, and monstrous, and now I, like, have my head in my hand. So I'm basically that was what the costume was, that I had my body up there, and since there's no head there, I'm carrying my head with my own hand. And, yeah, it was complicated, but we got through it, and it ended up being really great. So, yeah, it was just kind of it.
From a metaphorical standpoint, one of the reasons I wanted to go with that image was the idea that the queen actually is not rational, does not think with her head, that she actually is much more guttural. And so the image of actually pretty much speaking from her intestinal area is pretty much where she, no, I didn't mean it like that. But I mean, I just said, shut up. But I'm saying that, you know, that they have a song, legit, yeah. But the idea that she, that she doesn't have a lot of rationale for what she does, and everything is very guttural for her. That's what.
All right, E, can you explain to me what you were doing in your approach to the edge of the stage?
So my character, throughout the journey, Alice's father, Mark, he was one of the ones that jumped during Twin Tower. That was the take that we had on him. And anytime I raised my foot, either when we were in the land, in the back at the end, when it was a repeat of everything at the beginning, that was the moment when he jumps off and just accepts it.
Your clock, why is it 2 minutes after 12 and not 8:46? The time that
Well,
the 11
I'll
hit.
tell you, very good question. But I will tell you, actually, the time on it is not relevant, and now you're making me think it should be. So happy that there's yet another change coming down the pipe. What this actually is this image, which causes a lot of questions, and some people think it's a snail. This is actually, I was saying, maybe I should have gone a little more literal than what I did, but what this is actually a picture of the sphere that was in between the Twin Towers. And the sphere, if you don't know the story of the sphere, it was a large gold piece of art in the middle of the fountain at the World Trade Center. And it actually miraculously survived with having damage, but pretty much intact, which was pretty amazing. So I took a picture that I found of it, and I took the original and I put it in Photoshop, and then I painted it with colors, like crayon colors kind of stuff. And then I overlaid that over the original so it would give it some depth. And then this is actually a picture of the infinity clock from Wonderland, and I was trying to just meld the two worlds together. And now I have to find an infinity clock that says 46. Thank you very much. At District, somebody said, I love this snail, I didn't get it. Yeah, we make
You got questions?
Hey guys, good job. So why did you decide to do accents for some of your characters, and how did you choose the accent, and how did you kind of practice the accents?
It's tough.
Ainsley and Cyrus, actually.
So,
concept was every time that I sneezed, I would change an accent, and eventually that just got complicated and hard to understand. So I stuck with one, and how I practiced with that was LJ gave me a example of somebody, and I kind of looked over that, and I memorized some of their lines, and I went over it, and then I started melding that into my own lines, and, you know. So it's just kind of stuff to play around with, and another way to make my character over-exaggerated.
Cool. And what about you, Cyrus? How did you do your accent?
Like, from the moment we got this play, I was talking like I am right now, like normal ways, no accent, no whatever, right? And when we got to the district, like the day of district, I was talking to Mr. Edenmeyer, and I was like, man, I don't like it. I don't like the way it sounds. I don't like the way I'm acting. Like, I hate it. He was like, well, you're an actor, right? I was like, yeah. And he said, well, then be one. And I was like, oh, okay.
I'm very subtle.
And right when I got on stage, it hit me, and I started talking.
No, one of the things that we had worked with early on was this idea of him being a little less smooth and a little more Steve Urkel. And we kept saying that, and he was like, and he just kept coming off like Rico Suave. And every once in a while, he kind of, with Alice, he kind of sounded a little bit like an abusive spouse. I was like, okay, you're that's not working. And so that day, he was like, okay, so the Urkel thing, right? I'm like, go for it, let's see what
I watched
happens.
like 3 episodes of Steve Urkel.
And then Carly was, yes.
Okay, hello. So, I have 2 questions. The first one is going to be really fast, because I just want you to think first thing that comes to your head. So, my question is, if you could choose a different character to be, or whoever your favorite character is, other than your own, what would you choose? We'll start by Nathan. Just go boom.
Not a tree.
That's not an answer.
around on stage. I really like her accent, you know, so I really
I would either want to be Jack or Mock Turtle because I connect with both of those characters in a different way.
Yellington? Okay. Hatter or Alice? Nobody want to be White Queen?
All right, second question for my seniors. How does it feel, this being your last George Ranch High School performance? You're welcome.
Give it two seniors.
Yeah, Julia, go. I'm really glad this was my last show because this is the story I've always liked my whole life. And it's really sad. Before the show, I started crying and I just couldn't stop because it's like my last show. It's weird. So, it's really, really emotional. It's crazy. Okay, one more answer, Eden. That's not fair. I know your answers.
There are 15 of you.
There's 5 of us.
Okay, Eden.
Okay, so obviously, yes, this is a very saddening moment. This is the last time we're going to perform on the stage. We've been in this department, especially Emma and I, we've been here since the, and Melissa, sorry. And,
Yeah. Okay, you said that.
Okay,
anyways, but it's still depressing knowing that we've been here for 4 years, and it's the last time we're going to be on the stage, but I feel for some of us, we still feel like we still have more to do, since we're going to this, we're going to Scotland for it, so it's not an end for some of us. Some, like Julia, this is it.
Okay, I am kind of touching hog. I'm so sorry. I don't want to tell you. Okay, well, I just want to answer because it doesn't feel real. And but also the thing is, for me, this is not an end for me, or for Ethan, or for Carson. We are going to college for theater, so I'm going to be doing theater for the rest of my life. So this isn't the end of my book. This is just the end of the chapter.
And that's been the saddest part about it for me. Yes, some of you guys are going to Scotland, but some of you aren't. It's really sad.
Thank you.
So, wait, can I answer this? It's just me?
Yes. For me, I'm gonna make it short. It hasn't sunk in yet because, like, I don't know. I'm not a really emotional person, but it's just kind of weird because I'm the only one out of the stage who didn't get to perform on stage.
Amber.
Anyway, Amber and I we didn't get to be on stage. We were running backstage doing tech, and so like it's kind of weird for us because like we got to see everything happen before us, and we got that's it. We're done.
Amber, do you want to answer?
Yeah. I used to be an actress, and I decided not to this year, and it's really hard to step into like a whole different world of tech. And this was my second show doing tech, my first doing sound, and it was really hard to do it, and I'm going to really miss my friends because I'm not going into theater, and I'm moving away, so.
Did y'all hear that sound? Wasn't it great?
LJ, this question is specifically for you. What made you combine like the somber moments of 9/11 with a fantasy world like Alice in Wonderland?
It was I wrote a version of this that looks nothing like this for middle school kids about 10 years ago. And there was probably about 8 lines in this show that were in that show. And I thought last year when we were doing one act that, a lot of the people in one act graduating. It was a large percentage that weren't. And so I thought, oh, you know, I could dust that off and take a look at it and see what's there because it's fun and there's a lot of characters and that sort of thing. And that one had a totally different take on the show. And when I started looking at this one and I started really delving into it and what the catalyst was for her going into Wonderland, I started imagining what that might be and what that would look like. And because I have, a lot of people know this, not everyone does, but a lot of people know this, I have a direct connection with 9/11. It's something that has been there, and I've been kind of trying to figure out how to utilize that in some way and approach that from a writing perspective. And so it occurred to me that potentially that might be a catalyst for her. And I've always thought that Wonderland was an escapist story of getting away from something. And the whole careful what you wish for and all that kind of stuff has kind of rolled up into it. And so I started really looking at how this would affect her if the thing that sent her to Wonderland were actually an extraordinarily traumatic thing that she was trying to escape and trying to get away from. And so tying those two worlds together suddenly for me wasn't that odd. And looking at what she takes with her into Wonderland, the people that she takes with her, and the things that resonate with her. And one of the things that we talked about was, the question was, you know, how long is she in Wonderland? And the answer is, like, not very long. I mean, it's not very long at all. It's like in a dream, you know, you remember the first time you were ever told a dream lasts 10 seconds, maybe, and you're like, what? It was 8 hours. I was dreaming the whole time. It's like, yeah, it's like that. And that was kind of what we looked at. The little things like Jack calling her baby girl the whole time. And she just repeatedly saying that, and you hear him at the very end as the fireman, when he's picking her up, call her baby girl. And all these things that you hear the characters say to her that are actually being said to her in, you know, real, like when she's with Dinah and she says sometimes it hurts to move, and that's what she says to the fireman at the end. And so it's all kind of happening simultaneously, if you will. And so it is that split second of escapism and the what's the word I'm looking for? The shock. When you go into shock, and there's that. Everything is kind of, one of the things that we talked about was we talked about how, like, the last scene in the office when everything goes into the strobe and the papers are going everywhere and all of that. One of the things that we talked about is that feeling of when you're in a fight or flight situation or a traumatic situation, a lot of times things do go, if you've ever experienced that, you remember every single thing as though it were going in slow motion. That there's that feel that a split second lasts an hour, and it's just that. And so there were a lot of very interesting discussions, I think, from the kids, and a lot of interesting perspective. And I will tell you, there's so many things going through this that was like, the kids were bringing stuff in and going, oh wait, this is why this is happening, and this is why this is happening. And it's like, sure. It's like, because sometimes as the writer, you really don't know. I mean, you don't. You just kind of let it go and get out of the way and see what happens with it. And so sometimes they were, I mean, this little boy is the one that told me that she was wet because the fire extinguishers were going off, and yeah, the Duchess sneezes on her and she says, you're wet. But he says it's because the fire extinguishers are going off, and the Hatter's spinning. The siren is actually the fire drill, fire alarm. And where's your sister? Where are you, Clara? Clara Mangum is the one who told us that she was the original Alice, because we say there can only be one. There's only one Alice. And if you notice on the poster, there's an Alice falling out of Wonderland and an Alice falling in. And that she was the original. Now, I knew she was the mom. That's how I wrote her, but it never occurred to me that she was the original Alice. It's like, oh, okay. So the kids sometimes will tell you what it is, even when you think you know what it is. You might be wrong. So I think the connection there was something that they adhered to very quickly. And there's something not done. So it was one of those things that was it's a very hard and very scary thing, as you know, those of you who are parents, to open yourself up really vulnerably to children. It's scary. It's easier with kids like this. It really is. But it's scary to walk in and hand them something like this and wait for them to tell you what their thoughts are. Because there's so much personal invested in what you've done. And these kids took this and went, okay, all right. And they bought every second of it. They bought into it immediately. They have jumped through hoops like you wouldn't believe. Jabberwocky has been redone 7 times. 8 different times. Oh, we can't even, I mean, seriously, it's changed. And I change sound cues daily. Because I always tell them, as actors or technicians, you stop rehearsing when the show's over, or you die, whichever one comes first. And I tell them, as a director, it's the same thing. I stop directing when the show's over, or I die. And as I told them today, I wasn't sure which one was going to come first.
Stop saying it!
And so, but it was the idea that they really just jumped right into it. They were supported when they needed to be. They stepped away when they needed to. They gave me my space when I had to have it. But they bought it, and they bought into it, and they threw themselves into it. And they weren't afraid to investigate. They weren't afraid to ask questions. They weren't afraid to look at what was actually happening. And I gave them some pretty intense stuff to look at, especially, and I apologize to Ethan's parents. I gave this young man some really difficult homework for this show. And he did it, and he jumped into it and never questioned it, and embraced it. And I could not be prouder of this group if I tried. There's no way. They've been incredible.
LJ, did you think about this when you were writing, when you were going to do it with these kids? That the seniors here were infants when 9/11 happened. I mean, I was sitting there holding my baby who was only 2 or 3 months old. And all these other kids are even born.
Karis, I think, was born 3 days after. Isn't that what you said, baby?
My mom went off into labor on 9/11.
Yeah. One of my dear friends had her only child on September 11th. No, I didn't, and I'll tell you, one of the reasons that I jumped forward into this was that I spent a long time trying really hard. I knew we were going to Scotland, and I spent a long time being in contact with the creators of and getting permission from the creators of, and then going through MTI, and MTI taking it all the way to the top of their organization before finally giving me a no on Come From Away. I really wanted to take Come From Away to Scotland. The reason they told me no, finally, ultimately, we would have been the first high school to do it. We would have been the first non-professional company to do it, period. But the reason they ultimately said no was because it's opening in London in July, and or June, and the venue's it's going to be right there. And so they were like, no, proximity, we just can't have another production going up at that time. They were real supportive of wanting to do it. And which, by the way, if you haven't heard, we're actually seeing that in London when we get to London. We're seeing Come From Away. And so, but since I was already in that vein, I went, you know what? Go ahead, and let's just do it. Let's just do it. And so I went ahead and went with that direction. Yeah, I didn't, but it was interesting to talk to them about it and to get that whole perspective of realizing most of these kids weren't even alive, you know, when it happened. It's for those of you out there who are my age or close to my age, it's like, that's just hard to fathom that there are people who are about to be in college who weren't even born when that happened. It seems like yesterday.
Hello. Hi. Wait. Oh, wow. That's loud. I have a question for the scene about the tea party. Wherever they're doing the riddle and then like they go like LOL. I forgot the rest of them. IDK. OMG. Yeah, I like. Why incorporate modern like lingo into that?
Why are you bothering me, little boy? You know, it was one of those things that it's anachronistic on purpose. So now you've learned a word. Yeah. It's really not. It was one of those things that wound up staying in the script from when I had played with it before, and it wasn't set in 2001, and it slipped by me until the point where it became clear. But at that point in time, they were having so much fun with it. I just went, I'm gonna let it go. I don't, maybe one day I'll change it, but right now it's like they're having fun with it. But I was like, somebody like you is gonna catch it. But you're right. You're absolutely right. The kids were also the first to notice that one of the mistakes that I made in the script. There are several. You will make some mistakes all the time. And I got bleach on my shirt. Just thought I'd tell you all that because I just saw it. Is that I got confused when I was writing it, and they had to be in Building 1 because in Tower 1, otherwise it didn't make sense that they didn't have any. The first scene wouldn't make sense because they didn't have any idea anything was going on, and you would have. So they had to be in the first building. My office was in Tower 2, and I am so used to all of that information. The time was wrong. The flight number was wrong. They were the first ones to catch it. They were like, that's not actually the right flight number. I was like, I'm sorry, who was that? Could have been Ethan.
It was just like, I just thought it was repeating.
Okay. And so it was like, yeah, the flight number was wrong, the time was wrong, and you make mistakes and you go, I'll fix it. And that was one that just got past me, but he says he has an answer.
I have an answer. He does not know. Okay, so the people in Wonderland are the people that Alice sees in real life, but like exaggerated, right? So a lot of what she sees is what happened to her in real life, right? Just like the original Alice in Wonderland. So what happened is why we do that, is why we're talking like that, is because that's what she sees us talk like in the office. She sees us be like, auntie, like gossiping, whatever, in an office, because that happens in an office. So she just sees that happen in one place.
But what he's saying is that LOL, IDK, and OMG were not phrases in 2000.
Well, we made them up.
Here's our next question.
Never mind.
Okay, so I know this was already partially answered. Wow, I hate my voice magnified. Ooh, but what was exactly the concept of the Alice's strobe light moments? Like, was that a glimpse into reality for her, why she was like stuck kind of in between reality and Wonderland trying to decide things?
Yes.
I just wanted to clarify on what Ethan said about, you know how when he kept stepping like slowly, like when he was crying in slow motion and stepping in slow motion, like you said that was because he was jumping off in the real world. Like I don't really understand. Could you please explain that?
So my character is the Mock Turtle, and in the original Lewis Carroll Alice in Wonderland, the Mock Turtle is constantly crying. No, that's really crying. So that's what. He's just crying constantly, never stops, and so that's what I took. And especially with the punch over, God
Hey guys. I have a question for everyone that this applies to. What is one way that you guys relate to your characters? No. You get 5 of you. Pick who?
Want to scream at children sometimes? Yes.
Raise your hand. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That's the first one I saw. Okay.
Okay, I'll start. So for me, I really connected with my character. Well, I played motherly characters before. It was always really hard for me to kind of be that motherly figure because I'm not a mother. Acting, that's how you act. So for me, I was able to connect with my character by the way that I connect with my mother and the way that she mothers me. There she is. I love you, Mom. So don't cry. I connect. So the way that I mother and connect with Alice is the way. That's how I connect with my own mom. That's Okay. Yeah. Bye. Okay. My character. So when I got the character of Alice, we made it clear that she's really easy. Like it's really easy for her character to disappear. Because out of all of them, in Wonderland, she's the one who's trying to figure out, what's going on. And everyone there seems to know exactly what they're doing there. Everyone has a motive except for her, and she could get lost in that. But when I started to dig in deep to the character of Alice, it's really just the imagination of it all. And I realized that Alice is everyone. Alice is not just one being. She represents everyone. I mean, everywhere you go, there's something that a human made up or thought about that isn't real, isn't true. Everywhere you go, we're obsessed with it. Movies, games, anything. And here, I guess, I connected with her in the sense that almost every day you walk around and you think, what could I have done? What is going to happen? Why didn't this happen instead of this? I want this to happen. And I think that's just how I connected to my character. I grasped onto the idea that everyone has a different sense and a different imagination of everything in society and how everything looks, and that's how I got to know my character. Well, my character likes to have fun. I like to have fun. No, Alice is the only person that I interact with throughout the play, but Dinah always knows what's going on and what's happening. She's curious and she's always there for Alice. And being Paige's best friend in real life really helps. What? Because I just pulled what our friendship is really like and put it into the play. And I think that really helped that Paige was Alice and I was Dinah.
So, being part of the Red Queen's crew, y'all were very protective of the Queen, and I feel like in real life, and like people that are really close to me, and like even like my family, I'm very protective. If you mess with them, well, not only that, but in Wonderland, when we're all running around having fun, we can have fun. We can, share memories and everything and do whatever. But when it's time to get serious, it's time to get serious and be protective and protective. And, I lost my train of thought. Okay. But
Yes, I was very clean, and a cool thing is this is the first role that I've done twice. And I played the Queen of Hearts when I was in 8th grade in the actual Alice in Wonderland musical. And so it's really cool to kind of play it not in the actual musical or the play Alice in Wonderland, but to kind of be in something as different and unique and cool as this. And so the character development for this it was a little bit easier than other roles just because I had done it before, but for some reason I have the most fun playing the roles that are the complete opposite of me. Like I would say that the Red Queen is the opposite of me. Like I would never, ever, yes, no, except the laugh. No, I would never, ever want to hurt any of these people in any way, or anybody for that matter. And I never ever feel that way about anybody. And the cool thing about the Red Queen was just, she was just out there. She was outlandish. She just went out there and she just did her job. She did what she was gonna do. Rusty, on the other hand, but she got the work done. She was focused. She was determined. And I feel like I'm not to that extent. I feel like I'm not like, do this or else I'm gonna kill you. But I consider myself like very focused. I feel like that was LJ actually told me to I had kind of hard trouble playing Rusty at first. And LJ told me to watch Meryl Streep in The Devil Wears Prada. And so the Rusty character was a mixture of Meryl Streep in The Devil Wears Prada and Sandra Bullock in The Proposal. I don't know either of those movies, but that was kind of what I tried to take on Rusty, and the Red Queen was just kind of a heightened version of that. So it was really cool to explore this character and to kind of dig deep and get to explore even more. So.
And I have to say, honestly, I did not know until 2 days ago that she had played the Red Queen before. I had no idea. And so, and her mother actually told me just in passing randomly, and I went, seriously? I had no idea. But one of the things that was interesting to me, and we always talk about our kids and how they do and their growth and that sort of thing. And I've got some talented kids up here, not gonna lie. But this one, honestly, when we first started, I wasn't sure she was ever going to get Rusty. It was like she just didn't, there was something about it she couldn't grasp, she couldn't get past. I didn't believe a word she said. It was just like, it was hard, and no matter what I said, it just wasn't getting through. All of a sudden, one day, I don't know what happened, I don't know where, I walked in and she scared the crap out of me, and I went, oh my God, that is so it. Where did that come? It was amazing watching the transformation from where she started to where she got to the point where she was actually one of my favorite things in that opening scene ever, was just to watch her come in and know that she was just take no prisoners, walk in, take control, done, gotta go. And I was like, I knew so many people that did work like that. And I was like, oh my God, she actually was the boss that I quit. And then she just reminded me of her so much, I went, that's why I quit. That was why.
Cameron. Okay, see, my character is very complex. I play a tree. It's not just a tree. It's something more. It's life. It's reality in Wonderland as one. And one thing that really clicked with me, LJ said, don't hold your hand out like you're holding a martini.
Yes! In context.
Stroke of genius.
What's that?
It's just been an amazing experience. And I love everybody.
Oh,
I think we should do like one more question if there is a question, and then we should let these people go.
It's Toshi and then
Okay, two more. My stage manager says.
Okay, good evening, all. Anyone can answer this question, but I want Bo to start first because I was going to ask her a question anyway. So how was the process of making the play for you? Was it easy? Was it hard, exhausting? Go.
I went home every day. No, I'm just kidding. But like, it's just like, it's exhausting. Like, with the quick changes and then moving the sets and the transitions and then everyone running around to make sure everything gets done. It's exhausting, but at the end of the day, we get to do this. We get to accomplish this. And it's like all worth it. It's all worth going home and like studying till like 1 a.m. for the next test that you have the next day or anything. And like, yeah, it's hard. It was a hard process. It wasn't easy. I don't think anybody can say it was easy.
I'm not going to say that I use those words.
He did. He did. He did. But he said those words exactly. And so you're gonna get fired. Any rage I had during the whole process about like wanting to go home, like being over it, I just put it into my character.
Yeah, the show was really hard for me because of all the like physical labor and everything that we had to do. But I mean, like we'll be stuck now. But like Bill said, in the end, it's all worth it. Get to put on the show because
Let me tell you. There's probably about more than 30 days where I came home wanting to kill LJ. But after we performed it at District, I saw like what it all came together as. I was like, okay, every single cheer, every single like curse word everything was working, everything. And I like to see all of my castmates put out their whole heart on stage. So give my cast a round of applause.
Yeah, so, like, how was it hard? Well, in the middle of production, I had my appendix taken out of my body for like 2 weeks. So that actually wasn't.
Where else would your appendix be taken out? It's like taken out of my body. Is there an alternative?
So basically, there are trials in these things, and these type of things. It doesn't always go the way that you want it to, but it's always great to have them come together in the end. It's just a fun experience. And right before, it was all worth it because I was so hyped. I was so ready. I was so excited just to perform because I love it.
So definitely just probably the most difficult part is always like when there's constant changes and you always have to adapt and just keep going. But just like they all said, continue. It's always worth it at the end because you get to do what you love, which is perform for y'all. And that's the best part of it.
We have one more question. Okay, so for any 5 people, what was the hardest thing about getting into character, and do you have any tips?
The hardest, okay. Well, the tea party, for example, we're all just like insane, but like everyone in Wonderland is supposed to be insane, but we're just like this slightest bit like extreme. And so just finding like the parts, because Dormouse is like, she's always asleep. And so finding the parts when she'll just be talking and then she's out. That was probably the hardest to help it make sense in the show. I think that was the hardest thing for me.
Who hasn't gone and wants to? David, go for it.
So, I discovered that we had to freeze for long periods of time, and I was like, oh, God. Like, do these hands look like they can freeze for a long period of time? No, they cannot. And I was like up there during red, and today I was like, I'm gonna get a cramp, and surely enough, I got off. I got a cramp. Woo!
Okay, right there.
So the hardest part about being Dinah is that she's a cat and I'm a person. And LJ was like, Trinity, just be a cat. And I was like, but how? And he said I started looking into Eartha Kitt, and he was wanting me to growl like a cat and everything. And it was really, really hard, but with research and stuff, and he helped me, and he was like, be liquid. And I said, okay. So you just really have to work on it, and you have to not care, because some of the things that you're going to do is going to be awkward or not what you're used to, because walking like a cat is obviously not the same as walking normally. So you have to not care what people are going to think of you, because what you're doing is going to embody your character, and it's inevitably going to make you better. So I had to lose my filter about what I thought people were gonna think of me, so I could actually just be a cat.
Two more.
The hardest part for me, throughout this like whole little thing, from the start, I was always really energetic on stage. I'd run across backstage, back and forth like 4 times in one scene, right? So the hardest part for me was trying to control my energy.
Somebody asked earlier, what other part would you play? I promise you, if they did, it would be totally different than whatever you're watching somebody else do, because it's open to that. And watching the kids discover that and make the changes as they discover things and they learn new things has been fascinating. And the exciting thing is that it's not done yet. And I know that I have kids who are not moving forward with this at all. There are kids who will be going to Scotland with us who are not up here right now. And there are kids who are here who aren't going to Scotland who will probably be right back in the show when we get back from Scotland. And so I know that there's so many more evolutions still to come with this. And I know some of the kids have literally come up to me going, oh my gosh, I still want to, and I want to, and that's amazing. It's like you get to live with this for a while, and they're still interested in what do I do next, and what can I make, what can I work on to make it better and more solidified, and finding more elements for the characters. And they're still working on it, and that's what's so incredible to me with this process that we do in general, but this show in particular is, I can't wait to see where it goes next, because I'm not sure where it's going to go. And the possibilities are kind of endless. And that's what's incredible about all of this, with this show and these kids. It's pretty great. Spread the word, tell your friends. There will be other iterations of this. I'm going to probably sleep on Saturday, and then on Sunday, Mr. E, the other one, and I will begin writing music for this. And we are trying to, now, just so you're aware, I know how confusing and scary this can be. The opening and the closing are not musical numbers. They will not be musical numbers. Which is why we're actually calling it a play with music and not a musical, because I really can't see an opening number in that scene. Maybe it's me. I think it's probably a problem. So stop, because we're done. So, but that's what's happening with this. And we're getting it ready to take to Scotland as a play with music. Then we are coming back from Scotland, and it is the intent at this point that we will then be getting it ready with its third cast to go to Thespians in Grapevine in November, right after we close Mamma Mia. So,
Come to Mamma Mia.
There's still a lot to do with
in
the
October.
show. And so keep your eyes out, because there's a lot more to come with the show. Thank you so much for your support always.
And a round of applause for the amazing casting crew of